Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Joseph Pith and this is the Pith Take. I have been away for a few weeks. It's kind of relevant to the video, but also no big deal because there's no one really here to miss me. So over the past sort of 25-ish years I've had reason to visit East Africa at least once a year, occasionally more than that. Not really in a recreational or sort of holidaying capacity, but not really work either, certainly not paid anyway. Over that time I've built like lifelong friendships. Now I've seen the children of friends grow into adults. I've lost friends and buried friends. You know, I've attended weddings, funerals, and generally lived life there. Now it's been my observation that despite the often, unrelenting hardship of people's day-to-day lives, in moments when that burden is slightly lifted, or the whatever's going on in the day makes you have to take pause, people somehow seem happier. No, that sounds really twee, doesn't it? Like, you know, they've got so little but they're happy. So maybe happy's not the right word. Well, it probably is, but, you know, they're more content, more fulfilled, more grateful. I don't know. But definitely less miserable. You'd think a lot had changed, or that I'd seen a lot of change in 25 years, but actually not so much. I think a campaign message of one of the still ruling octogenarian presidents is slow and steady progress, probably with a heavy emphasis on the slow. But that said, there obviously has been change. I think the biggest notable change has been private foreign investment, particularly in infrastructure, specifically in roads. You know, where once there was red dirt tracks crisscrossing the country, joining towns and cities, now there's new tarmac, ring roads, expressways, generally just facilitating even bigger traffic jams. Sometimes these are foreign aid funded projects specifically for infrastructure, and they're generally pretty easy to pick out because they take about 3 times as long to finish as the privately funded projects. The privately funded stuff is kind of usually a means to an end project, whereby the road is being built to connect either a port or a freight route with some sort of proposed industrial development. The latter of those two generally has little, well, not even little, just no real care or sort of thought for improvement of the roads and the road network within the country. It's just joining the dots really for their own benefit. Unsurprisingly, China is probably the largest private investor in that area, at least as I can see it. You know, it's kind of a Well, hello, we would like to build you a wonderful new road. Oh, well, thank you very much. We would also like to put a behemoth industrial complex at one end of it. You'd be really desperately clutching at straws to call it progress, and its overall impact on the wider population is quite the opposite, really. Any employment that accompanies the development tends to be extremely exploitative, offering really pitiful wages, or jobs aren't even open to the local workforce and are filled by imported manpower. Hard to fathom which of those is worse, really. But it's always an exercise in lubricating the right palms, and of course the rich get richer. I mean, it's not it's not through chance or popularity that the same governments have ruled for decades across much of East Africa. And all the while your average citizen has seen little to no positive change in the last 25 to 30 years. Now someone might say, well, that can't be true. We've come on leaps and bounds technologically. Surely that's helped. Well, almost everyone has a mobile phone of some sort. But has it vastly changed the lives of, like, your average subsistence farmer in Kenya or Tanzania? No, not really. If some cataclysm rendered all technology kind of unusable in an instant, I think most communities in East Africa would barely blink before getting on with their day. But this sort of decades of effectively sort of treading water, amounting to societal stagnation, it's directly counterposed to that big observable change. So while as high as 70% of populations are still struggling daily to survive, those at the heights of power, whose job it is to serve their countrymen, are rather choosing to serve and enrich themselves. Obviously, don't let's fool ourselves into thinking that this is a problem exclusive to East Africa. Just seems that East Africa aren't overly concerned about hiding it so much as some supposedly more developed countries are. And it is really infuriating, you see countries with such abundant resources and super hard-working citizens denied what should be a natural advancement given those sort of ingredients. And then also imagine if all the foreign aid of the last 30 years had actually got to where it was intended. And we're not talking about small amounts of money here either. In some cases, up to 50% of governments' budgets are coming from foreign aid. So while richer nations are sort of patting themselves on the back at how benevolent they are, maybe they should take the blinkers off and ask exactly how many luxury cars does one man need, while his former neighbours are filling jerry cans with pathogens and parasites that constitute the day's drinking water. But if it were only for those greasy palms had misdirected billions of dollars of aid money, then perhaps there might still be opportunity for those hustling daily to have opportunity to escape poverty, but that decades-long established rot has spread down from the top into every office of public and private power. Today, getting a foot in the door is all about who you know, rather than how capable or qualified or hardworking you are. That, and of course, whose palm you may be willing to lubricate. Now, while that all sounds flipping hopeless, let's jump back to that apparent lack of misery. So, in spite of the kleptocracy, something really very precious has been preserved in East Africa that many of us in the West have long since abandoned. There's a really true and tangible sense of connection with family, with community, ancestry, and identity. And it's really foundational to people's lives, and no matter how hard those lives are, it anchors them to something greater than themselves. And a confidence like that in who you are, despite your circumstances, really inspires resilience and highlights the fact that we are so much more than what we do or do not have. Now, the next video is going to be a little different. I think I'll leave it at that. If there is anyone out there, I will see you in the next one.